Welcome everyone, this is Ryan Miller from Parent Dome, where I come to Periscope as an educator speaking about internet safety. And today we're going to be going through a lesson on public impermanence and so what. And I'm going to go through a number of slides in this presentation that I will be making available. After this broadcast is done, it will be removed. If you want to gain access, all you have to do is to be part of the Parent Dome family by going to that bit.ly link there. And there's a module, which is my video teaching and the additional materials that I provide. People have often asked, where'd my mouse go? There it is. How am I doing this? This is another piece of information that I provided on how to use Periscope for educational purposes. I use tools such as OBS and other third-party software to bring my message forward. I was listening to a broadcaster last night that was talking about another broadcaster, and this broadcaster represented themselves as a professional broadcaster. I do not make that representation. I'm not a professional broadcaster. I'm a man with a mission and a passion, with the desire to bring as much value as I can in the messaging I do inside of a platform. So as a pro, no. If you want a pro, go to New Media Radio. This gentleman is a pro. He knows how to do it. Shannon, good to see you. So if you're interested in upping your game in what you do on live stream to improve the value of the message in the production value, this course that is available here gives you the ability to do that. And I provided a coupon code on how to do that. So if you just hid the chat and did a screenshot, you would be able to get that. Also, one of my favorite broadcasters that I have a close relationship with, an emerging relationship with Gabsmacked. And we speak online, we speak offline, and he provides me a tremendous amount of value in what I do. It's kind of like accountability. And the way he processes information is similar in the way I process information. So he is doing what's called politics in 4D. And his life journey experience as an autistic savant is valuable for people to hear. But he has created this hashtag ProWest. And I want to promote that for him, that if you're interested in supporting the politics in 4D and the ProWest kind of idea, that shirt is available. You can go just to that. And it's on Amazon Prime. So if you're on Amazon Prime, you get free shipping. Okay, so we're going to jump into the lesson. You're going to notice at the scrolling at the bottom that hopefully that scroll pops up here. There we go. That my broadcast, please do not super heart my broadcast. And that's, if you want to recognize me, you can go to my profile. There's an area that you can click on a bit.ly link that's how do you support Parent Dome, and there's a page that you can make whatever decision you want about supporting this message. It's not super hearts. Any of those super hearts are just going to Twitter and to Periscope. I will never be financially recognized as a broadcaster inside the platform. So I just believe in being transparent with people, so I'm just going to let that message keep scrolling so nobody super hearts me. Somebody accidentally super hearted me yesterday, and I had to bring that to their attention. All right, so let's get into this. So we're going to go through foundational questions. It's about an impact of avoiding what is hidden in plain view. Now, if you listened to me before, I say whenever you enter into a social media experience, whatever platform, that is a contract. When you click I agree, all of those contract terms are telling you what and will not happen inside that experience. It puts some obligations on you legally because it's a contract which is enforced in a court of law. And the other side of that equation is your expectation of the platform to enforce their own rules. Those are simply assumptions until you have evidence that validates that they're going to enforce those terms that they may impose upon you, either as a reward or as a penalty. So often people say regarding social media, we hear this all the time, I don't care, I have nothing to hide. The assumption is that nobody does anything mean or evil with a text, email, photo, video, which you post. So if you have nothing to hide, that is assuming that nothing happens bad on a text, a photo, an email, or a video. So if you're willing to put it out there and you have nothing to hide, then you are totally fine with what anybody will do with it, share it, edit it, copy it, post it in other platforms. You're totally fine with that because you have nothing to hide. You're public, so let it be public. I'm not important enough for anyone to care. Let me say that again. I'm not important enough for anyone to care. The assumption is it true we get to assign what is important for someone, a corporation, or a government? Do you get to determine what is important? You're just making a statement that I'm not important enough to care, but how do you know how important you may be to somebody else who wants to influence you, to maneuver you down a certain way of thinking, to advertise to you, to extract personally identifiable information? You may not see that as important, but it is important. Pastor Kate, good to see you. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. That assumption is we as users get to determine what is right or wrong, good or bad, and social media has no evidence of being a court of public opinion. Now, I say that ironically because if you are at all involved in social media and you see anything in social media, you know that there is a court of public opinion. That what you may think is being good, somebody can immediately make it being bad. So you don't get to determine what is right or wrong. You can hope people think what you're doing is right, or you hope that people will find things to be wrong. But there is no moral absolute in social media on that. Social media as an ecosystem is devoid of morals and ethics. There is no foundation. It's free for all. It's a free for all. You don't support the freedom of speech. It's like because you don't have anything to say. That's the equivalency to some of those questions I just asked. Somebody else mentioned that. I think it's a fantastic example. And it's illogical. I put the contrast of the red and blue button down there because it's a contradiction. Because you obviously have something to say on social media, but you don't feel that there should be any restrictions on what you should say, only when you experience the consequences of what you say online. So look at this contradiction that's right below. The blue button is true. And the blue button says the red button is false. This is called a logical fallacy. It's called the law of contradiction. That opposites cannot both be true. We live in a world where people want opposites to be true. This is where political correctness and moral relativism has invaded our thinking. And we're creatures of rationalization and justification of our behavior. And we live within contradictions. Connection issues already. Sorry about that. So you can say what you want. Good morning, Dr. John. And when you say or show whatever you want, the unintended consequences are really meaningless. If you come on into live stream and you're behaving or showing or saying whatever you want, New Media Radio. Oh, I got to pause. Interruption in the broadcast. New Media Radio is my friend Marcel, which we're going to have a conversation, an interview with him tomorrow. Marcel is the professional broadcaster that I was referring to earlier. This person knows about broadcast. Not only that, that's his profession. He knows broadcasting. He came from live radio. And he has been very helpful in speaking with me, and we've had an open conversation. I love the guy to death. He's open. He's willing to learn, and he's very truthful. He says, this is who I am. This is what I want, which I'm completely respectful of. So if you don't know New Media Radio, I encourage you to follow him and listen to his broadcasts, because what I'm doing with my broadcast, he even takes it one step further. So I'm learning from him, and I think he's learning from me, but his structure is very valuable to broadcasters that have a message that they want to convey to many, many people. And I'm not talking about a message of positivity, and I'm not talking about sharing your experience in smoking a water pipe. I'm not talking about those kind of experiences that are moving the ball forward, either in physical, psychological, and emotional and or financial advancement of one's life. If you're looking for entertainment and distraction, there's tons of that out there, and I appreciate that, Marcel. Please, Dr. John, he is really good. He is a radio broadcaster, and he brings his competency, his background, his experience to that domain, and he's doing it as a profession. And he treats it as a profession, which is unlike many other broadcasts that are happening on. So I dovetail out of my lesson. Marcel, it's good for seeing you, and I appreciate you coming in. So I wanted to give you that recognition. Dude, I value you, man. There's not many people that I have within the Periscope domain that that I'm willing to hear the feedback for, nor am I willing to invest the time and energy in. I'm going to go off on the sideline again. There are people that are talkers, and there are people that are doers. I'm a doer. I crank out content. I do research. I invest in expanding the gray matter in my brain. So I'm a doer. I'm an active doer. And as my friend Steve says, listen, dude, you're older than me, but you outperform me. And I said, I don't compare myself to anyone but myself. I have to hold myself accountable to who I am. I don't care who you are. But in order for me to take energy and to invest it into other people, I'm not going to work harder than you're willing to work. That's insane. So people want free consulting from me to help them advance their business, their process. I'm like, because I work hard, why would I be working harder than you're willing to work at your own business? And you want to consume from me. So I'm putting barriers around that. Marcel is one that we've already got this worked out. And from terms and conditions, we have a mutual understanding of respect for each other and know that based upon our integrity, it will work out. It's just a conversation. We don't need the dollars and cents and decimal points. We know it's a conversation that both will benefit. See? And we don't need a dollar attached to it. We recognize that we both bring value and that we both need to find a way to recognize in that value. Unfortunately, in the Periscope world, there are not many people like Marcel. There are not many. There's a lot of talkers and takers and consumers, but not many givers. And I'm glad to find and align myself with givers. Gabsmack is another example of a giver. Dr. John is another example. I could go a bunch of people that are native to my broadcast about giving. So I'm sorry I went off my messaging, but I wanted to do that. So basically, you can say or show what you want, and you have no care or concern about the unintended consequences. If you are about getting celebrity and amassing lots of followers and have no care or concern as to what those followers are like, then you're achieving your goal. You don't care what kind of people attach to you because you're here for only celebrity. It's like Kim Kardashian and the Kardashian clan. They have millions of followers. But what kind of people are those followers? What is their character? What is their integrity? Are they looking at the Kardashians as some bag of flesh that they want to sexually objectify? Do they want to get to know them intellectually? Or is it just eye candy? I'm not here for eye candy. I'm here for redeeming value. All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of questions here. Ask yourself, do I trust what I don't see? Put this in the context of the 200 to 300 selfies that your child is taking and posting on Instagram, Snapchat, or on text, or wherever. Do you trust what you don't see? What is the basis that you assign trust on the invisible? Do I know what others think? Do I even care? So those 200 to 300 selfies that your child is posting all over the internet, do I know what others are thinking about that photos, and do I even care? Today, tomorrow or in the future. And we're going to go down the future in this because this slideshow is a little bit long and I wanted to get into the future side. Do I know where it goes? See, I talk about the word back-channel communication, and the fact that you don't know what back-channel communication is, or those back-channel, deep, dark, nasty places of the web, doesn't mean it doesn't wind up there. That's one of the reasons of my reasoning for removing myself from Brax, is because the back channel, nobody sees the back channel. They don't know the back channel, and they don't know how to navigate the back channel. And when I see things that are public and permanent pop up and being represented in the back channel communications, you go like, wow, that's not so good. That's not so good. Because here's a piece of information and a piece of technology and a piece of tools that is going right into a community which will use it for harm. Could you imagine taking a device and putting in the community of sexual predators? Take this little box. It's got little USB connections with a Wi-Fi connection, and it goes right into a forum of sexual predators. Now, the fact that you don't know that that's happening, or you have no ability to see that, are you going to make the assumption that it's not going to happen? I'm here to tell you it is. It is happening. Steve, good to see you. So, I am... Okay, I'll then leave that at there. Do I know who sees it? So with all this information that is being put out there on the internet by your child, by yourself, on Gmail, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, do you know who sees it? You have no clue who sees it. You don't know their moral, ethical underpinnings, what they see with it, but you know what they will do with it. You have to make all these assumptions that make yourself feel okay with what you do. As I come into this broadcast, I know that because it is public and it is permanent, that people can suck it down. They can cross-purpose it, they can edit it, they can do anything they want to it, and they can take it and post it on any other social media profile. They can overlay it with a speech. This is the platform. This is social media. You have no ability to stop that from happening. You have no voice to complain when it does happening because you entered into this contract and you accepted that this is part of the function of social media. So when you complain that somebody stole your video and in a Slack communication, they've taken your video and put it out, I'm like, shut your pie hole. There's no such word as stealing when it's public and permanent. That's very true, Country Dutch. So when you are public and permanent, the word stealing or theft doesn't work. That's the red button is wrong, blue button. It's a contradiction. You cannot achieve privacy if you're public. You can't limit what something happens if you're public. The internet is public and permanent. So when your video is, according to you, stolen, so what? If you don't want it stolen, don't go out there. There is no expectation of privacy in public. We used to have an expectation of privacy in the bathroom, that you could be quiet in the bathroom. But that's gone too. I was just touching on this. You might not know back channels, but does that mean they don't exist? In this slide, I had actually taken some screenshots and I posted some back channel communication. I just showed, and I decided, you know what? I don't want to show you how evil that is. Because female broadcasters, you have sites dedicated to you. Yeah, that's very difficult. You have to watermark your copyrighted material if you want to enforce copyrights. But female broadcasters, there are sites specifically devoted to your broadcasts. There are photos of you, there are edited videos of you, and depending upon what kind of broadcaster you are, it goes even to a deeper degree of depravity, that you're being doxxed because you don't know to turn off your location settings, or you do not know how to achieve a level of privacy, that your personally identifiable information is now tagged along your photo, a little bit of a description and profile of you. This is what you broadcast about. This is when you can be normally found broadcasting. And they're even sucking down some of your followers. But the fact that you don't know these exist, I wanted to bring them to you, but I thought I don't want to embarrass. I don't have any of them in here. Oh, shoot. Thank you, Steve. I'm hoping, did the audio clear up? Thank you for telling me when my audio goes scratchy. Can I get a 1 if my audio is clear? It should be clear now. Thank you. Thank you, John. So I was not going to bring those things publicly and show you some of those back channels, but they do exist. And Instagram is a haven for bringing those broadcasters. And there's small groups, private groups, public groups of all types of female broadcasters. Male broadcasters are more the perpetrators than they are the victims. Now, I won't say that there aren't victim male broadcasters that are being abused and trolled and harassed. That does not discriminate. Women happen to be a greater piece of that. Now let's dive into the future. Like a compare and contrast between adults and children. About what's happening in the future relative to our behavior online. Has the ability to affect our friends, has our ability to move through school, to go to college, to get a scholarship, maybe to change your profession, your job prospects, or even as an employer impact. This is going to come a little bit clearer when I go into the next series. And we're going to talk about what is happening inside of that future. So when we go into school, into college, or possibly a scholarship, or going into a profession, going for a future job, or we're going to be an employer, the background check at this point is the next step. And many businesses are going through social media, all aspects of social media, not just your account, but those accounts that you're attached to. If you do not want to open yourself up through that review process, then you've just admitted that you're not looking for that job. That's a decision. So everything that you are doing now is available for time immemorial, and that the employer community is going to go out and scour your social media. Now, the first questions that I asked are all about our behavior, but the employers and the colleges are going to be looking at your behavior from their lens. Is this the kind of person, character, behavior we want associated within our institution, or is a brand ambassador for our brand? And they're going to scour that social media. So let me just go through this background check. These are some of the things that employers, me being an employer, are going to be searching for. Social media searches can result in incorrectly associating information with an individual. Individuals commonly disclose untrue names, dates of birth on social media sites. Additionally, many social media sites do not even make that information available for searching, meaning you can get a little bit of distance. Social media searches can incorrectly misinform about an individual for the same reasons as a false positive. So here's what I want to put it from the employer's standpoint of looking at that background check. If you're going into social media and you're building up this profile, this celebrity, this profile, did you do it based upon who you are or who you represented yourself to be? Because if you start in there in your social media as lying, you're telling your employer that my life began on a lie. Or how do I know when you're lying, and how do I know when you're telling the truth? I'm looking at this And I don't know what to believe. I'm looking at a schizophrenic personality that actually there are several organizations that do that quite well, and I'm associated with a couple of them, because there is a forensic background search, and it is not just one layer deep. Unfortunately, the delete button doesn't work on the internet, Dutch. I mean, that's a good strategy. And if you're going to go through your delete, you better delete everything and then have a period of time of zero activity, because the Wayback Machine remembers all. The Wayback Machine remembers all. No, delete totally doesn't work. It's public and it's permanent. The fact that you don't know where it's archived and who has access to that archives doesn't mean it's not there. I promise you, it is there. Ask anybody on Twitter where they deleted their tweet and all of a sudden it's now a trending meme on social media. Happens every single day. Here comes George Takai, and he tweets something out a little bit edgy, and he's like, holy crap, I'm getting some backlash. Whoop, the tweet goes down. Well, he forgot there's this thing called screen capture that saves it, and psh, it comes right back up. And he's like, how do I put the toothpaste back in that tube? You don't. You don't squeeze the toothpaste out in the first place. Violations of terms and conditions. Often, online terms and conditions of social media sites prohibit anyone from logging in using another one else's username or password, but also that governs behavior which is going on inside of that. The terms and conditions may have other provisions designed to protect the privacy of the user. That's awesome, Dutch. Violating these terms and conditions can be one or more of breach of contract, a copyright violation, wire fraud, wiretapping laws. See, these are people don't read the terms and conditions, and they make statements that are tied to the questions that I started in the beginning of the broadcast, which are their hopes. And their hopes are devoid of any reality, the evidence. It's they want to continue doing what they do and avoid the consequences which may come from it. That's where everybody says, I'm sorry. That's where Kathy Griffiths holding up a severed head of a mock of Donald Trump and goes, well, I didn't really mean it. You did mean it. You didn't mean that you would get the negative consequences that you did for getting it. So saying I'm sorry, but that's now who you are. Don't tell us that's not who you are when you are fully committed to this. So when you go through this, did the employer in the background just catch you on another lie? And inevitably the answer is yes, because our behavior is inconsistent on social media. We want to be blowing sunshine and flowers and roses on one side of our behavior, and then we want to be condemning and judgmental and visceral with things that we don't agree with. We don't moderate our behavior. We believe that we hide by this veil of anonymity, that we can dump garbage down. But see, understand that people understand technology and they have tools with algorithms that they can recognize speech patterns. So even though you may be hiding behind an anonymous, the way you type, the way you write is consistent. You've exposed yourself with just what you say. And it's absolutely hysterical that I see people typing and behaving in all these channels of communication thinking that they're anonymous, but they use the same words, same sentence structure, same type of conversation topic, and just think they can change it to anonymous, and that's not who they are. We know who people are. Whether you have the software tools to do it or whether you have the psychological ability of discernment, we know who they are. Discrimination. The types of information that some people put in their social media can lead to a negative impression. Exactly, John. That affects an employment decision for reasons that have nothing to do with the effectiveness on the job. Being depressed being an example. While some social media search firms claim to filter the search to protect the employer from discrimination charges, doing so means that ambiguous information may be filtered out, reducing the actual value of the search. I go into this in greater detail in another lesson that I've talked about. And discrimination is People like to shout discrimination, but there's laws tied to discrimination, and it's not your opinion. Protected activity. Suppose that the social media search shows that your applicant was complaining about his or her prior employer to other employees. So you feel that you are, thanks, Country Dutch. I don't ask people to swipe and invite our followers. That's not why I'm here. I'm not here for celebrity. People make their own decisions relative to what I do and how I do it. You think because you have this Facebook account or this Twitter account. Yes, exactly right. Facts don't care about your opinions. Laws don't care about your opinions. It's very true. Gab says it very well. That you think that you can say whatever you want in the capacity of being off hours. You do. You can say whatever you want. You cannot avoid the potential consequences or the repercussions for what you say. So if you are a college student and you go into a private forum and you're complaining about some professor and a paper that they've given you and the grade that you didn't feel was deserved, and you post that out there, then somebody screenshots that and posts it on a social media platform, and the teacher sees it, what are you going to complain about? You said it, you meant it. The unintended consequence is now that the professor is now going to have another critical eye on you, may embarrass you, may humiliate you, may penalize you. You just made your own work harder for you based upon your own actions. Own it. Don't complain. Own it. You needed to release your frustration in a public and permanent social media. Good for you. Good for you. If that information is in the hands of your decision maker and you now have a problem because of the act of complaining to other employees is legally protected activity under the National Labor Relations Act. Ha! There are some caveats to that. The National Labor Relations Board has been very active in pursuing cases to protect that kind of activity and have not had tremendous success because the example in which I shared, it depends upon where you are in the ideology or the institution. It is so completely subjective. And this, now we fall into the realm of censorship, or power bureaucracy. Power bureaucracy. Another lesson all unto itself. Image management. Often social media users attempt to control their social image through social media. This may include misinformation, sometimes including outright fabrications about their own conduct. For example, suppose you find a social media post that refers to marijuana use. The impression that this gives is that the individual is a user of marijuana. This is not necessarily true. The individual may be abstemious but trying to appear cool to friends. Or you could be as brazen to put a bullseye on you and say, look at me, I like to smoke pot. I know it is a federally controlled substance and it's illegal, but my state has provided the ability for its legal use for medicinal. So inside my state, I'm okay. But according to the federal government, it's a Control 1 substance, and I may not be okay. See, here's something that people don't understand. It doesn't become an issue until the government makes an issue. I know many dispensaries that have gotten to a certain level of revenue and the federal government comes in and shuts them down because they were able to operate until the federal government said you're not able to operate. So just look at it this way. ASCAP, BMI, Napster. That's totally fine, Joey. These are all the decisions that we make as far as advocates and educators. That's cool. It just recognize what are the unintended consequences of that. So if you're doing something that is approved within a state or something, or you're going to be an advocate, or take the vaccine issue, whatever it is, that my example of ASCAP, BMI, and Napster. LimeWire and Napster existed that you could download music. It was illegal. Peer-to-peer network sharing of files was illegal. It violated copyright law. But it didn't become illegal until you got caught, right? Because you could download all those things until you got caught. So you don't know what the trigger is in which you're going to become. Yeah, I got you, John. I got you. So you don't know what the trigger is for when you may be on the radar to be caught. You can drive down the thoroughfare 100 miles an hour every day for a year, and the speed limit's 55. And you never know when you're going to get pulled over. And when you get pulled over, the cop is going to say, broke the law. You go, well, I've been doing this for a year. What the heck? Yeah, but doesn't mean that means you've broken it for a year without being caught. Now you're getting caught, I'm taking your license. Do not pass go. So I just say, if you get the knock on the door because you're violating federal law, don't be upset. These are just your own decisions. Irrelevance. What will a social media search really tell you? For most positions, the information found through a social media search will not be relevant. If you are hiring for an entry-level position, does it matter that the applicant does socially while not at work? Does it really matter? If concern is drug use, you would be better off with an actual drug test as opposed to being concerned about the validity of somebody being informing of them waking and baking and smoking pot, or they're just talking about it. If your concern is the image of the personnel's project, that concern is probably valid for organizations concerned about, I said that wrong. If your concern is about the image that your personnel project, that concern is probably valid for organizations concerned about their brand image in the marketplace. So if you're a brand that after hours, all the employees go out to an establishment that they drink and consume and they make dollar bills rain from the sky, then that culture may be acceptable to you. But if you're a brand which has been known by blue suits, white shirts, and a red tie with 3 letters, that they have strict guidelines. And if you're taking the reigning kind of individual and trying to fit them into a blue suit, white shirt, red tie brand, they don't comport. They don't match. So lastly is the expense. Social media searches have a cost. You have to pay to find out what those are at various degrees of depth of the research. Now, the cost associated with securing the right candidate for your brand, for your institution, for your firm, that investment, whether it's $1,000 or $10,000 for the background search, is nothing compared to the financial risk, exposure, and expense in managing the wrong candidate. Because if that social media presence is the wrong candidate and it goes into the public space as your brand ambassador, you are spending money for damage control. Hence, my example of Andonios from Terminex. They acted so swiftly because they had a predator in their employment that was going directly to women's homes. And when they learned that they have a predator that is live streaming, they thought, do not pass go, get this guy out immediately. That happened in one day. Absolutely. And Pastor Kate, for as much as I talk about this, it doesn't mean jack squat. I think that's fantastic. I think that's fantastic. But see, Pastor Kate, I talk about this all the time. And it doesn't pierce the conscience because people's behavior is what it is. And I'm putting myself in that same category. That I know it's very difficult to modify my own behavior relative to what I do, what I need to do to model for my daughter, and what I need to do with my wife. It's a hard challenge Can we control what we put in our mouths? Absolutely. Do we? Absolutely not. Do we control how we exercise our body? Can we do it? Absolutely. Do we do it? Absolutely not. We are walking hypocrites. And I don't excuse myself in that. I'm a walking hypocrite as well. But when I talk about this topic, the hypocrisy needs to now be illuminated into a delusion, because we are living a psychosis to make ourselves feel good for avoiding the most primal responsibility, and that is our children. Our children. Planned action and reaction. I'm with you, Vet. I'm with you. Hey, Vet, go take a look at my post in my room on Brax. I don't know if you've seen it yet. So go to my parenting room in Brax. So what I'm going to do at this point, I would like to get a sense from people in here, because I'm going to stop recording this because I'm going to archive it.